Welcome to the fourth Environmental Justice Fair and Symposium. The idea behind this was initiated several years ago, 5-6 years ago. Then we had a COVID, and because of the restrictions during the COVID pandemic, we couldn't hold this event. And now we are restarting it. So the first 3 events we hold on this topic, which is much broader than most people understand, is on the law relating issues around and that are involved in environmental justice. And we were lucky to have 19 different national and local organizations that are dealing with environmental justice. And the second event that we held the following year, also in February, was on the food justice, where we discussed environmental issues relating to food insecurity and various other types of access to food, right? And various other types of the issues relating to food and environmental justice. The third event we held, which was right before the pandemic, it was in 2019, February, we held on the topic of water justice, where we discussed the various issues that we, especially in Florida, faced when it comes to water and environmental justice. It was quite an interesting, event, where among others we had some representatives from the Seminole tribe, and they talked to us about, what they're experiencing in everyday life over there in Everglades. So that was the last one. Then we had a break for a couple of years because of the obvious reasons, and this year we're doing also in February, end of February, usually the last Thursday of February, we're doing an environmental justice on the topic of on environmental design and crime prevention. And so I am very happy that I can tell you that this year we have several different organizations joining us, especially proud that local law enforcement agencies or other departments are joining us, from Miami-Dade, from Broward Sheriff, from our Coral Springs Police, and they are going to talk about what could be done, or what is done to prevent crime before it happens. I hope you all understand the importance of crime prevention, not just solutions, but crime prevention. Before the crime is committed, what it could be done. And so, this was the theme for this year. And obviously, a person that is maybe, globally well known when it comes to that is Mr. Wayne Rollins. I reached out to him and he immediately responded. He met Broward College students previously. We engaged with his efforts to fight crime before in Liberty City, where a few semesters we went down to Liberty City and planted we tried to beautify the area where around the place, around the segregation wall down there in Miami, and we interacted with some of the people that Wayne deals with every day. Then during the COVID, I did it by myself, but I also had a few of my friends and my student friends join me. I'm not supposed to say that because my boss is here, but we also went and delivered food and masks and the items that people needed to survive during the lockdown. We were well protected, don't worry, we wear masks, we had all the protection we needed, right? But we went there and we worked with Wayne, and so that's why he was very much interested to help us, shed some light on this project. I appreciate the response of our Broward Sheriff Office. Immediately they said, yes, we'll join. I appreciate the response of our Coral Springs Police Department, who also agreed to join us, and obviously our keynote speakers, which Mr. Wayne will introduce. Now I'm going to introduce Wayne, tell you a little bit about him, and then after that he will take over, and then we'll have a chance to listen about environmental design when it comes to campus security. And lucky for us, we have our chief, I don't know how the title is, the director of the Broward College Safety and Security. Is that the title? You know, Mark, I forgot. Yes, yeah. He also expressed the interest to join us, which is excellent. It's very nice to see some of our leadership, you know, participating in events that we hold here at North Campus. So Wayne Rollins is the president of UMA Future International. It is a strategic planning consultant who has assisted rural and urban communities nationwide in developing, implementing, and evaluating successful community revitalization strategies. Rollins is the project manager for the Miami-Dade County Anti-Violence Initiative that includes group violence intervention and the nationally acclaimed Walking One Stop, which we also have on our flyer, which has shifted the paradigm on how services are delivered to Miami-Dade most challenging neighborhoods by using artificial intelligence powered by algorithms to identify and dispatch social, economic, and health-related services to doorsteps of residents traumatized by gun violence. Rollins also serves as the director of the South Florida Reentry Task Force. He recently co-authored Precision Policing 2.0, a framework for the future of policing. The features unprecedented police and community relations to attain new heights of legitimacy and reconciliation. Wayne Rollins also co-authored Planning for Reentry, the 2004 South Florida Reentry Summit, which was used by the White House for its Office of National Drug Control Policy grants across the country as a tool for developing comprehensive multi-agency ex-offender reentry plans. His works have been highlighted in the national and international conferences and publications, and I had a chance to witness that myself and to understand how much Wayne is appreciated by various types of agencies working in this field. Final point to say before we continue so that you understand why we're doing this in this fashion. Well, when it comes to environmental issues, especially environmental justice issues, usually you have activists who are screaming off the top of their head their concerns. And then you have practitioners who are telling you what they are facing in actually doing their job. And then you have policymakers who are usually, as you know, clueless of what is happening. So the idea behind this environmental justice event at Broward College is to put all these people together, and so we can learn from each other, get in touch. So I'm hoping that all of you will get to meet, for example, Mr. Wayne, and get some, advice on things that we can do. And our other guests who are basically in the field, working, doing the job of trying to increase crime prevention through environmental design. So with that said, I'm going to now leave it to Wayne, and we can go and have the discussion. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Mirsad. And thank you for all coming. If it was just us and an empty room of chairs, it wouldn't be much of a symposium. So thank you for all investing time to be with us. And we want to learn from you. So this is going to be a dialectic opportunity. So ideas, questions, or whatever, please, let's engage. And we don't want to be talking heads for the next 90 minutes and then the next panel for another 90 minutes. Where each one of you has value and brings value to the conversation. So we want to hear from each and every one of you. There's no stupid questions. So ask the questions, offer your comments, offer your solutions, challenge us. If you hear something that doesn't sit right with you, challenge us on it. Because let's face it, you're the next policymakers. You're the next directors and presidents and CEOs. So, you know, we can learn from you, maybe even more than you can learn from us, or at least, like I said, it would be dialectic. So the first keynote speaker, I've had the pleasure of working with, oh man, I don't even know, probably 30, almost 30 years?
30 years.
About 30 years. And Chief Gerald Darling, he joined the Memphis Shelby County Schools Department of School Safety, Security and Emergency Management, formerly known as the Memphis City Schools, after 28 years of diverse law enforcement experience. Prior to his selection as Chief of Security for the school district, Chief Darling served as the Chief of Police for the Miami-Dade School District from July 2004 until August 2008. Under his leadership, the Miami-Dade School District was recognized and commended for addressing the disproportionate arrest rate of minority youth in the Miami-Dade School District. Chief Darling's efforts in developing and implementing the civil citation program in the Miami-Dade schools was recognized as a best practice and a national model by the White House in 2008. And let me just add on to that for a second. What the civil citation program did is if a child committed a misdemeanor offense, they would not have a record, a criminal record, as a result of that offense. So it was as if it didn't take place if they completed the civil citation program. So it can be very challenging. You know, when you fill out your FAFSA application, right? And then they ask you what is it going to ask you?
Do you have a criminal record?
Right? Yes?
Yeah.
And it can be difficult for you to get financial aid. It can be difficult for you to get jobs and so forth and so on. So what he was a part of establishing gave people a second, a third, before. I think actually you were able to get up to 3 civil citations before it actually became something on your record. So you have to be really messing up pretty bad to get a record. And so he was a big part of it. And the arrests dropped from some actual number in the tens of thousands down to very, very few. And so he was largely responsible for that. As chief of Miami-Dade Schools, Chief Darling established the accountability-based crime reduction model and established a county-wide gang task force. As Chief of Safety and Security, Chief Darling was instrumental in continuing the reduction in major incidents of crime within the Shelby County schools. Under Chief Darling's leadership, the school district was recognized nationally by the Department of Justice for its innovative efforts in reducing crime and school incidents. The Security Services Division was awarded the Exemplary School Safety Award as the best in the country in 2011, 12, 13, 15, and 17 by the School Safety Advocacy Council. The school district was selected as one of only 6 cities to participate in the National Department of Justice Forum on Youth Violence Crime Reduction Plan, along with the city of Memphis. While serving as assistant chief for the Miami Police Department, Chief Darling was instrumental in addressing the problem areas with the Miami Police Department and was credited with bringing stability to the police force through his strong leadership. He advanced through the ranks and served in numerous areas to include administration, field operations, and investigation divisions. Before retiring as assistant chief of the Criminal Investigations Division, Chief Darling's responsibility was overseeing all investigations and collaborating with the state and federal investigative agencies. Chief Darling is one of the few police chiefs who has attended and earned a certificate from the Harvard School of Educational Leadership, and he earned a Master's of Science degree in Management and Public Administration from St. Thomas University, and a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Fort Valley State University. He holds memberships in various civic organizations and is well known and respected throughout throughout the law enforcement community nationally and internationally. Chief Darling is a graduate of the most prestigious law enforcement management schools in the country, such as the Police Executive Research Forum, Boston University, Boston, Massachusetts, and the Southern Police Institute University in Louisville, Kentucky. He has been identified nationally and internationally for his innovative approaches to law enforcement and law enforcement management. Chief Darling has been invited to speak and train throughout the Caribbean and the United Kingdom, and was invited personally by the Minister of Defense of Trinidad and Tobago to assist and evaluate the implementation of COMSTAT crime reduction process for the Trinidad and Tobago Police Department. Chief Darling is a graduate of the Leadership Memphis Juvenile Justice Cohort and currently serves as a board member of the Memphis Shelby Crime Commission. Chief Darling's comprehensive approach to crime reduction has been published several times in the School Discipline Report and Peace Builders magazine. Please welcome Chief Darling.
Good morning, everybody. I don't know where Wayne get all those things to talk about from me, but I'm glad to be here. As Wayne stated, I am a retired chief, law enforcer, over 40 years in the profession. I retired 2 years ago, and I'm back in Miami working with Wayne on some things through Miami-Dade County. First, I want to talk about the subject that we're here for, and then we'll talk about some of the other things that I've done that have impacted how we address and deal with crime and incidents throughout the country. And I don't like using the word crime, so my term is incidents. And the reason being, particularly in school, in the school environment, you don't want to associate a school with crime. So if you hear me using the term incident, that's why I do that. Prior to becoming moving my career into the side of school policing, I started out with Miami Police Department in the 80s. A lot of you all weren't born when I started, but I started after graduating from college and saw that this was a profession that I could have an impact in. Once I went into it, I started at it and worked as a school resource officer. Then I went into narcotics. I was the first undercover officer because I was new. I was a new face coming in. They put me in an undercover capacity for years. I took down, I was the Miami Vice. I took down prostitute houses, gambling houses, narcotics, anything that had to do with vice. So while doing that, I got promoted very quickly. I moved through the ranks very quickly. And I'm giving you the backstory so you can see how I decided to make crime fighting the way I do it. And going back in that profession and seeing the impact of some of the things that the youth were going through, the families were going through. As I moved through my career, I had a chance to make a difference. I got promoted very fast after 2.5 years and moved to a sergeant to running the narcotics unit. The reason I got that position because the narcotics unit was operating, and some of you all know how some units can operate in a rogue manner. They were disrespecting citizens' rights. They were kicking in doors without warrants. Everything that you see some police departments doing now, that's what they were doing. They put me in that unit to kind of stabilize it. I was able to do that. We We got rid of the officers that were disproportionately making bad decisions, and we moved to be one of the best in the country, where the national drug czar came down. This was when, under the Clinton administration, they put in a national drug czar. He came down and observed our operations because we were so effective, and our practices were being modeled throughout other cities, the process that we were using. From that point, I was promoted to lieutenant and took over the whole squad, took over every aspect of undercover crime in the city of Miami. And from that point, I was promoted to major of police, where I handled every critical department within the department. After that, continuing to learn, which I'm glad to see college students, and I love talking to students. I've spent most of my life addressing students, but to see this process, and hopefully in listening to some of the things that I've gone through, it can inspire you to do and make some changes in the community. Any change is a good change, even if it's a small one, so always think about that. So prior to running the entire investigations division, dealing with the Pablo Escobar, all of the major drug dealers, the cocaine cartels that were in Miami back then, was my primary work. That work put me on a national level as it relates to developing strategies and national and international partnerships. After that, becoming a police chief and taking over the squad, we had a big problem, and we'll talk about that later. This is where I met Wayne. Liberty City was out of control. We had the major problem of drug infiltration, witnesses being killed, the state prosecutions not being effective. So we took everything, we put a strategy in and took everything federally, which cleaned up a community. When we started that process and in fighting crime through the process that we put in place, you couldn't give a property away in Liberty City or any area surrounding that. In cleaning up that area and taking all the criminal element out and making life safe for citizens, people to live, the entire community changed. The property values changed, and you all were there. You can see the feeling of pride coming back in the community. It's not over. Crime fighting is never over, but we took a big bite out of it. Prior to that, I was asked, and this is where the environmental crime piece comes in. The new superintendent of schools had heard about the work that I was doing for Miami-Dade County Superintendent Rudy Crew. He came in from New York, and he wanted to have a meeting with me because he wanted to change the process of how they dealt with schools and how they dealt with addressing students who they said committed crimes, but who had incidents. They were disproportionately arresting about 9,500 students. Might as well say 10,000 students a year, every year. So you're looking at a school district with 400 schools with 40,000 employees, 400,000 students, and you're putting 9,000 to 10,000 of them in jail a year, or in juvenile processes a year. So that was impacting a lot of students' lives, and it's year after year. So it's compounded, 10,000 this year, 10,000. So you're affecting a lot of students. So we knew a lot of the incidents could have been diverted or we could have done something about it. So he asked me to come and to see if I would be interested in putting in a process to address that. I didn't want to because I loved what I was doing as a municipal crime fighter and dealing with the incidents and keeping city of Miami safe. But I thought about it and I made a critical decision in my life and took the position. In taking the position, we knew we had some tools that we could use that Wayne talked about to stop and divert crime. We did a impact study on the schools. We had about 30 plus schools that were having the major incidents in, so we went in and did the analysis of those schools, looked at the environment. This is where the environmental piece comes in, looking at what was causing the incidents, what kind of housing was in and around those incidents, and rather than look at the other 300 plus schools, we put a concentrated effort in dealing with the schools that were causing the most problem. We called that the zone. And it wasn't that it was a negative name using the zone, but it let us know that we were gonna zone in and put target our resources in that area. So in looking at that, most of the schools happen to be in our more impoverished areas. Even if they were north, central, or south, the areas always had the same demographics. So we looked at innovative ways that we can come in and address those issues, from dealing with the school sites, cleaning up the school, egress to the schools, changing how we put surveillance processes in the schools and so forth. One school had a history, and I'm going to talk about that now. I'll name the school, Miami Northwestern's Senior High School. Nobody wanted to go to that school. The school had a terrible history of fights, gun violence, and everything else that you could think of. Went in and did an analysis of the school, looked at where the incidents were occurring, how the students were coming in and out, where they were shooting dice and craps inside the school. So we made, we looked at technology, we looked at getting stakeholders in, engaging the students, the teachers, getting the information from them, and we're able to put some things in place that totally changed the focus of that school. And that school turned out to be one of the best schools in Miami-Dade County right now. That's just one example. And in doing that, we looked at a technology that we called smart analysis cameras, that if the students got a hall pass, or if they went to the bathroom, or if they did anything, we had cameras set up in a certain area. Once that camera saw you go into the bathroom and you didn't come out for a certain amount of time that it was clicked in for you to be able to go in and out, an alert was given to one of the officers or instructors or principals that so-and-so went in this area, didn't come out. This cut down on them going in the stairways and so forth. So that was one way of environmentally using the environment and using technology to address that problem. The other part was the fencing and the hedges and so forth. A lot of kids would hide weapons and things like that in the hedges, in and around fences and things like that. So we had to make some adjustments with how we did that. Overall, in 1 year of putting in those policies and those strategies in that school, we were able to reduce crime in that environment by over 65, 70%. It was unbelievable. We took the incidence down of students being arrested from 9,000 to less than 700, which was having the largest school district in the state to having the lowest arrest rates. That was unbelievable. That's one reason we were recognized by the White House for those efforts. Fast forward, the work that we were doing in Miami got circulated all over the country, and I'm sitting in my office and I get a call to come up to Memphis to look at the incidents that they were having. Memphis had 4 contact shootings, and if you know what a contact shooting is when someone is hit. You can have shootings in a school, but if the bullet actually touches somebody, we call it a contact, and luckily the students didn't die. In the cafeteria, in front of the school, in and around the areas of the school. I come up to do an analysis of what they needed to do. And by them calling me up, they were 2 incidents away from being deemed an unsafe school district. Anytime you're deemed an unsafe school district, a lot of things come into play. The state actually takes over the school district in the state of Tennessee. They run everything because the parents and the citizens don't think that the school, no matter how large it is safe enough for their students. So the state moves in and takes over from the local LED. So I went in, did the analysis, dropped it on their table. I'm flying back to Miami, and I get a call right before I get on the plane, and the superintendent asked, would I come in, since I wrote the analysis, would I come in and implement the changes? So I thought about it, because I was very happy in Miami, and I thought about it, and I made the decision that I wrote this analysis, I'm gonna go in and implement it. I took the job. I was working both jobs at the same time, half in Miami, half in Memphis. And school officially started in August. So I had from the 15th of July to August to put some of the things in place. The first week was tough. We were arresting 75 kids a week in that school district when I first got there, for incidents of major gang problems, major incidents. So it was rough. I didn't even have time to rest before we had to get to work. I didn't take anybody from my staff here in Miami, so I had to come in the training mode to make sure I could get these officers and command staff ready to do what we were charged to do. So fast forward, by the end of the school year, we were able to make a reduction because I put in a similar process of the silver citation, put in some things to where the schools were safe. They didn't believe in fences around schools in Memphis, Tennessee. They thought it took away from the aesthetics of the school. They didn't believe they wanted open country spaces. It was a challenge to get them. But I was able to come in, and with them knowing that we had a crisis, I was able to get support for everything that I needed. The airport quality x-ray machines in every school, metal detectors, non-invasive metal detectors in every school, and staff that was trained and sensitive to the needs of the students. And every new school, every school that is built, was going to be built, had to have my input or my staff's input into the design of that school and what was needed to protect that school. So that's where the environmental design piece came in. So fast forward to that. We were able to, with this process, put a process in place to where going from 75 student arrests per week, now we're down, by the time I left, we were down to 2, maybe 1 a week out of a 150,000 student population. I think that's pretty good. We were recognized, as Wayne said, as one of the best in the country, and recognized as one of the most innovative school districts in fighting and addressing crime through environmental design. I sit on several boards, and one of the primary consultants with the Council of Great City Schools as it relates to this, to where architects, maintenance, personnel, we all meet once a year and go over some of the newer technology and ways that we can help make campuses safe. And we don't ever want to hear about students, university students, elementary students, high school, middle school students having to deal with incidents and crime because we didn't do our job. So every night, every day, I took it personal that no student, I wasn't going to lose any students on my watch. And thankfully, I was successful in doing that. And thank you, and I hope I answered a little bit about what we can do for the
And now we'll open it up for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Very much appreciated, and thank you for being here. I just wanted to ask you to clarify that term, environmental design, because it's the first time that I've encountered it. And I'm wondering if you're speaking about physical design, or if you're speaking about, dealing with social processes, just what is entailed, and what is encompassed by that term?
Okay, that's a great question. Environmental design is, it has 4 principles, and I can give you each principle. The first one is natural access control, how you come in and out of the area. The other one is the territorial, how large your space is, and the maintenance. And in order to look at how you deal with environmental design, you have to conduct a safety audit of your property, of the campus. And the chief in the back knows what I'm, and after every incident, major incident like what happened here in Broward County and other cities, they mandate yearly now that we do what we call safety audits. We come in and we check to see if fences are overgrown, if doors are accessible from the outside. That's one part of it. And identifying your high impact areas. When we say high impact areas, where a large group of students can be, how somebody can come in and drive a car in that area with the explosive device or with an assault weapon or something that can harm students or harm anybody on campus. And then you have to involve your stakeholders. And when you say stakeholders, anytime you're going to build a building on this campus, the chief should be in that meeting. Some of the students should be in that meeting. So that's the concept of environmental design. I hope I answered your question.
Okay. Another question here?
When you mentioned students being in that meeting, that actually brings me to a really good question about when you're managing the environment around the campus and stuff, have you considered about like students being around in those areas, maybe having groups of students going around those areas, keeping task of like managing them, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Like especially like maybe if you have like gardens, not exactly at the front, but like, so instead of people just monitoring them, they can actually both manage the gardening and also keeping sure that there's nothing stored in the bushes or something.
Yes, and we utilize that in a lot of our schools in Memphis, and it's an agricultural, quasi-agricultural, metro kind of environment. So we have gardens that students maintain. We have, when the architect is building a school right now, the big planters that go in front of the building so people can't just drive up to the building. We make sure that they are built so we can utilize those, students can maintain them, and it works perfect. That's an excellent question, but environmental design entails all of that. If you have a group of students that may be interested in metal art, building huge metal sculptures in front of the school, things like that can help put more safety processes in place aesthetically, and also help you when you're as a student, if you're an art student, an art major.
Do you think that like more green in exterior would help limit a lot of the crimes?
Of course. One thing about crime, they look for the path of least resistance. Anywhere they can get in easy and cause the most harm. From stealing a purse, from shooting somebody, from sexually assaulting somebody. They look for an easy way in, easy way out. So if you don't have those in place, you're gonna do well in helping, and that'll help the safety practitioners who are in here and in and around your school.
Okay, so I guess if you don't have any trees on campus, that is probably very, very bad, right?
Very bad.
Asking that. Well, especially if the campus is missing hundreds of trees. Any question?
Hi. Sorry, I know a lot of this is about environmental design, but I was kind of interested in the initiatives you took with, like you said, kind of like security and pertaining that. I was also wondering for your initiatives what kind of like social measures you took, not just in terms of like how to make this space safe, but like how you communicated with the students that you were trying to protect as well, and how you would kind of address their feelings of being kind of like, policed and being really regulated.
Oh, that's an excellent question. When I took over both school policing, because of my background as a hardcore crime fighter, they thought that I was going to come in and, oh yeah, we're not the, they'll call them the crayon cops. We're not, so we could just go in and kick in doors and pull students out of class and this and that. That wasn't going to happen. I got a lot of pushback from the officers because they thought me coming from the environment that I came to was going to legitimize their efforts to be the so-called, macho cop. So I had to balance that. I had to teach our board and trainers to train them on students' behavior, on trauma. A lot of our incidents happen because a lot of things are going on in these students' lives, the trauma that they have. It's a process that they go through. And I have each one of my officers during the morning were to be at the one way in, and that's another part of the environmental design. One way in, one way out in a public school. And that's the national standard now. It's one way in, one way out. They stand at that door and they speak to every student that come in from the time school lets in. And they're instructed, if they speak to a student and that student don't acknowledge them back or don't speak back or whatever, to find out something may have happened that night that's gonna filter into that school. So they have certain skills that we empower them with to teach them how to engage the students. The other part of it, I took over the discipline part of the district. The behavior specialists, the counselors, social workers, all of that reported up for me. That was part of the strategy, to let them know that granted this kid may get in trouble or whatever, but he's a student, he has problems, he's a member of a family, so let's go to the root of the problem. And we were able to reduce, like I said, incidents down to 1 or 2 a week. And to piggyback off of that, the city of Memphis has serious problems externally. But when they come in those schools, that's the safest environment for them. My goal was to have every school in the city of Memphis to feel like a private school. And that was, we reached that goal. No matter what your zip code was, whatever school you went to, your school was going to be just as safe as that other zip code.
So you say with environmental design, it's used to give protection against crime. For example, you said how they look for an easy way in, easy way out, right? So you work against that and make sure that does not happen. But what precautions do you take to make sure that does not backfire? For example, if the precautions that stop them from having an easy way out ends up giving the person that the incident, as you say, is against, that also prevents them from having an easy way out for protecting themselves.
He's saying basically, how do we quickly run away if there is a trouble?
Well, we have a plan. We call it and the chief knows. Every school has a plan that students should be trained on in a critical incident for active shooter, active participant on campus. So you would have a plan on where you should go, what you should do if someone is on campus, so you can isolate each one of you all can be safe, so we can come in and find a perpetrator. It's a plan, and each school has been mandated to hold those exercises, and you all should have an understanding of where you have to go, when you have to do it, and what time, how long the shelter in place or whatever processes that you have are in place. So
I guess maybe there was a misunderstanding. All the fire exit doors still are there, they're just not used for entry and exit.
exactly,
Unless there is an emergency.
exactly.
So I guess this isn't really a direct question for you, but this is my second semester in BC, and when I was in high school, my school had like a shooting drill, right? Like just in case anything happened, or we'd have like fire drills, you know, in case of emergency, and like I haven't had anything like that in BC. So I guess my question is for the director of safety, because obviously like you said, all schools have that mandated. They should, because that's a very real possibility. Like school shootings are rampant throughout our country, so I guess this isn't really a question, it's more of a statement that we should be implementing those in our school, even though, you know, we're not the biggest school, but we should kind of. Great, thank you.
Yeah, and like I said, I know the governor has mandated, the governor in Tennessee, Governor Lee, has mandated it, and we follow it. And I'm sure with the contacts that the chief has as it relates to the tabletop exercises. We use students in the exercises as to what you would do, how to triage a student if an active shooter was on the premises, how to save lives and mitigate the loss of life, and all those things. It's a plan. It's a national plan that's adaptable for every campus and every environment.
Have another question here?
Hi, I'm glad that you're here to enlighten us about what you did in law enforcement. Can you give us, how can I say it, about the program? Can you tell us a little bit about the program that you did for the kids when they get locked up and when you come in and implement the program that you started? How can they, so they won't go to jail? Can you tell us a little bit about that program?
Sure. The Civil Citation Program. The Civil Citation Program was a program that had it was based on law. Juveniles have the opportunity for second chances, third chances, and what most law enforcement agencies were doing were not utilizing that. We looked at a law that was already on the books in the state of Florida that children could be diverted for minor crimes, nothing major, no, none of the felony, the hard felonies could be diverted if the parents would agree and sign off on it. The child is given almost like a ticket, like a ticket. They're taken to what we call a juvenile assessment center. When they go to the juvenile assessment center, that's what it means. You're assessed. You're finding out what's going on with you. If there's trauma, are you being abused, or are your parents watching you? Where do you live? So all these things, and then after that, you're assigned services. Your counseling services, job opportunities, and you have to sign off on that you're going to adhere to these, or you violate the citation. If you violate the citation and you don't adhere to that, your ticket could become an arrest, and that'll go on your record. So what we were able to do is just have an array of partners, what I call community partners, and people just interested in working with these young people. And they're in there, they come in, you're not going to spend the time behind a bars, because we want you out of there in less than 6-7 hours, so you don't get that hardened effect. Now, the regular process without the civil citation, no matter what your offense was, you had a 21-day process that you had to sit incarcerated before you could go and make amends or go before a judge.